New box office breakdown show. This is Max Talk Box Office only on Max Talks Movies. My name is Max Henrik. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and ring the bell. I talk about the box office every single Tuesday here on this channel. Also, please comment down below. What are your thoughts on the box office? What did you see this past weekend? What are you gonna see this upcoming weekend? Let me know in the comment section. Also, please like the video, the thumbs up button. That's how you support the channel. As I said earlier, please subscribe and ring that bell for notifications. I talk movies, TV shows, and box office every single Tuesday. So please subscribe, ring the bell. We're so close to 200 subscribers. Today on the channel, we're talking about this past weekend domestically as the final numbers coming in worldwide. So starting next week on the channel, we'll talk about the total domestic and worldwide numbers for this year. But visit the last box office show for this year that I'll be just talking about the domestic weekend numbers. So we're gonna get into that. So that is from the first weekend of March, March 1st to March 3rd. And let's get into this past weekend's box office and also preview what's coming out this upcoming weekend. So not shockingly, Dune Part 2 absolutely overtook this weekend and became the first big movie of 2023, opening to 82.5 million officially this past weekend for Warner Brothers Discovery. A huge win, as the original film in 2021 came out simultaneously on HBO Max and in theaters. That film opened to 41 million. So Dune Part 2 has doubled the original film's opening weekend. The word of mouth is unbelievable for this movie, not just as having 95% Rotten Tomatoes score, but as a 95% Rotten Tomato audience score and an A cinema score. So clearly audiences, everyone unanimously adores this movie. Dune Part 2 is a massive win for everyone involved. Denis Villeneuve has struggled for a very long time. Even though he's made some of the best movies of the last 10, 15 years, he has struggled to connect box office-wise with those films. Blade 2049 was not a big hit at the time. Films like Enemy, these are not major films. And Dune 1, obviously, he got the benefit of the doubt from the studio because it both came out in theaters and on HBO Max. But this movie has absolutely delivered. This is another massive win for Timothée Chalamet, who has become Mr. Warner Brothers since December, as Wonka has grossed over 600 million worldwide for Warner Brothers. Now it started early December. Now, originally, if you guys remember, Wonka and Dune Part 2 were supposed to release around a week, 2 weeks apart in December of 2023. Dune Part 2 was moved out of December of 2023 to March of 2024 due to the actors' strike. And I think that was a blessing in disguise for this movie, because first of all, it gives Timmy and Warner Brothers two massive movies over the last couple of months, but it gave Dune Part 2 its own space where there's no big movies that hit theaters over the first 2 months of the year. And this movie could just come in and be the first big blockbuster. Now, from an awards perspective, yes, if this movie would have released in December, this movie would have been nominated for tons of Oscars for this upcoming Oscars on Sunday night. But because this movie did release in March, it will be eligible for next year's Oscars. And now we will see if awards voters and critics can obviously keep this movie in the minds over the next 8 to 9 months when awards season resumes later in 2024. But overall, a massive win. Obviously, I think Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya are big winners because they're the most heavily promoted. Austin Butler, a lot of these actors are big winners from this movie. Overall, massive, massive win. Now, we will see how this movie does drop off in its second weekend. There is kind of a big movie hitting theaters this upcoming Friday, but we shall see how Dune Part 2 holds up. Also, another great thing, 46% of its box office came from premium screens. That's Dolby, 3D, IMAX, XD, stuff like that. So clearly people aren't just seeing this in the movie theater, but they're seeing it on the biggest, best screens available. So that's really exciting for Dune Part 2. We'll see, based on its word of mouth, if it can have long legs at the box office. But so far, all good signs pointing for Dune Part 2. In number 2, in its third weekend, is Bob Marley, One Love, dropping 45%, 7.4 million for this movie. It's up to 82.7 domestically. Really good stuff for Bob Marley, One Love. This is not a massive movie by any means, But clearly, there are a lot of Bob Marley fans out there that are not seeing this movie. It will do very well once it hits digital as well. This comes from Paramount, so down the line, it'll be available on Paramount Plus. But still, very solid movie for Bob Marley from a box office perspective. The word of mouth isn't too terrible for this movie. It's not great, but still people are seeing this movie. But I assume it'll do very well once it hits digital. In third place, in its second weekend, is Ordinary Angels from Lionsgate, another faith-based film, one of two in this top five this weekend, starring Hilary Swank and Alan Ritchson. Ordinary Angels gets to 3.7 in its second weekend, 39% drop again, 12.4 million. So it's been very interesting. This is the most mainstream kind of faith-based movie in a while because we've had a lot of from Fathom Events, as well. You've had The Chosen. We had that religious movie last year that kind of built up their own fan bases to make those projects. And now an actual studio making it did not move the needle as much as the other movies and shows have done so far in theaters over the last year from a religious-based perspective. Especially, I think this movie was probably expected to do a lot more because Reacher is a massive show for Prime Video, and Alan Ritchson's obviously in this movie, but that has not moved the needle. So again, this is doing okay. I assume that, again, this movie will also do very well once it hits digital. In fourth place, as I just mentioned, another faith-based film, really series, is The Chosen. Its final 2 episodes, season 4, episodes 7 through 8, got 3.2 million. Throughout the month of February, every other week for the most part, they have released 2 episodes at a time every week in the month of February. So this is just the back 2 episodes, and then with this season of The Chosen, it's been in the top 5 every single week. So that's definitely a win for that. For Fathom, it is under Fathom Events. And then wrapping up the top 5 is Sony's Madam Web, which dropped another 46% in its third weekend, 3.1 million, only 40 million domestic, a rough movie all the way around. Even Sydney Sweeney was joking about how bad it was in her SNL monologue, how she joked that hopefully people did not see her in that movie. This is bad publicity all over the place. I think Sony is trying to flush this down the toilet as quickly as possible. It is a Sony movie, so it will hit digital for a very long time, for a couple of months, and then down the line, it will get to Netflix first. So that is the deal that Sony has with Netflix. So that is this past weekend's box office. As I said, next week, I'll be back to bring in the overall numbers for domestic and worldwide so far in 2024. We're still very early in the year. It's not a lot to talk about so far. So coming out, we have 3 movies coming out this upcoming weekend. The big one is Kung Fu Panda 4 from Universal and DreamWorks. This is the first Kung Fu Panda film since, obviously, Kung Fu Panda 3, but that was in 2016. So it's been 8 years since the last Kung Fu Panda, and the first Kung Fu Panda came out in 2008, which makes me feel old, 16 years ago. So we'll see where this franchise is 16 years later, really 8 years later since the previous film, but it's been very highly, we've seen a lot of commercials of it, both in the theater and at home. So we'll see if families come out for Kung Fu Panda 4. Also, the other big movie hitting this weekend is Imaginary. This is the brand new horror film from Blumhouse, starring DeWanda Wise, and it comes from the director Jeff Wadlow, who directed Fantasy Island and Truth or Dare, which are some pretty bad movies for Blumhouse, but we'll see if you can get back on track with Imaginary. And then the third movie hitting theaters this weekend is also it's hitting limited this week. Why next week? And that is the new movie called Love Lies Bleeding, starring Kristen Stewart and Katie O'Brien. That's getting a lot of awards, early awards buzz for next year. That movie is also hitting limited release. And another faith-based film, Cabrini, is also hitting theaters this upcoming weekend. So what are you going to see this upcoming weekend? Are you going to rewatch Dune Part 2 in theaters? Let me know in the comment section, and I'll see you guys soon.